My mom mocked me in her speech, so I exposed her affair and ruined the party right in front of the mayor and her bosses. My name is Noah, I'm 32, and if you ever want to see how much bitterness a person can bear and yet smile, try being the regret your mother toasts to at her retirement party. It occurred last Friday. My mother, Marilyn, was finally retiring after nearly 4 decades in the education system. The article once referred to her as an elementary vice principal, then a principal, and finally a local legend. Everyone was there, including previous co-workers, students, family, neighbors, and my older brother, Lucas, the golden kid. He was a great athlete turned financial consultant with a wife, 2 children, a golden retriever, and my mother's complete attention. Growing up, Lucas was always the responsible one, the leader, but I was the kid who became too quiet in gatherings and asked questions at dinner that made people uncomfortable. I was the one who did not follow the script. There will be no sports, no major professional changes, and no settling into the suburbs. I primarily worked in digital media, either remotely or as a freelancer. I traveled, sometimes excessively. They thought I was weird. It was a mistake. The celebration was held in a nearby golf club ballroom, which featured a buffet, a string quartet, and a softly playing slideshow in the background. Photos of her with students, instructors, PTA meetings, Christmas parties, and award ceremonies. Lucas and I were also included in few images, the most of which were from our childhood. But every time my face showed, the slide seemed to shift somewhat faster. I knew the mood of the night the instant I walked in. My mother kissed my cheek and remarked, "You clean up nice, Noah, for once." She then turned to welcome the mayor. Lucas shook my hand and said, "Glad you made it, little bro." As if I hadn't flown in from Barcelona expressly to be there. The speeches began midway through supper. Her former colleague offered pleasant words, some amusing stories, and some mild applause. Lucas then seized the microphone. "It's rare that a mother can do so much for so many," he declared, "and still find the time to raise 2 incredible sons." "Well, one anyway." The room erupted into polite laughter. He looked at me as if everything was in good humor. I sipped some water. Mom finally took the stage, her hair well fixed and her flowered blazer matching the napkins. She smiled warmly at the audience. "I've spent my life trying to make a difference," said the lady, "to shape young lives. And I'm proud to say I raised 2 amazing children." He looked up. Her lips twisted into the knowing smirk that I despised as a child. "And 1 regret." The audience let forth a roar. Lucas laughed the loudest and almost clapped. "At least she's finally saying it out loud," he exclaimed. And I simply grinned. Because I arrived prepared. See, this was not my first disgrace. This was not even the 10th. Every family vacation has become a quiet practice in being tolerated. For Christmas, I received a sorry mug and a somber place at the table. Last Thanksgiving, they forgot I was allergic to walnuts and served pecan pie at every place setting except mine. This year, on my birthday, I received a group text at 11 p.m. Lucas gives 1 thumbs up emoji. But tonight was mine. I had brought a little present bag of basic blue paper, nothing fancy, and placed it under the stage before supper. Nobody had noticed. I stepped up carefully, took the microphone from her hands, and she beamed at me as if I were still 6 years old and going to recite something idiotic for attention. "Won't you mind if I share my gift first?" I said into the microphone. The room became silent, more out of politeness than interest. I reached into the bag and retrieved a little remote. "I thought I'd contribute to the slideshow," I explained nonchalantly, clicking once. The screen flickered. The photo of her holding a student's award has vanished, replaced by another. A scanned email from 5 years ago. My father's name in the subject line, with a note beneath it. Short, cold, and condemning. "Marilyn, I can't keep doing this. You lied. You said he was mine, but the test was clear. Noah isn't." The entire room gasped. My father, or the guy I had called father for 32 years, dropped his fork. My mother's face was absolutely exhausted. Lucas stopped laughing. I clicked again. The next slide appeared. A PDF of the paternity test, dated, signed, and certified. I did not say anything. Not yet. I just watched the faces change, some confused, some horrified, and some already whispering. I could feel every pair of eyes crawling over me like ants. And I just stood there, clutching the microphone, taking in the silence like fresh air. Because it wasn't just about genetics. It was about the 32 years I wasted pursuing bits of approval from a woman who despised my existence and a family who treated me as a punchline. This was only the beginning. But I halted there, allowing everyone, including those who had just laughed, to understand the gravity of what had just happened. My father's hands were shaking. He gazed at my mother with disbelief, rage, and betrayal. Then he opened his mouth. But before he could say anything, I shut off the microphone and advanced to the next slide. The next slide was not a document. It was an ancient photo, blurry and digitized from a physical print. A photo shows my mother in her 20s sitting on a beach blanket with a man no one in the room had ever seen before. Not my father, not anyone they'd know. But I recognized who he was. She was not wearing her wedding band in the photo. She had a big smile, wind-blown hair, and sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. And the man wrapped his arm around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder as if he belonged there. Like this wasn't just a summer fling. And the date in the corner. March 1991. 11 months before my birth. I did not say anything. I did not need to. I simply let the image sit there on the screen, like an open wound. The crowd had become hushed. Even the wait workers had stopped moving. Forks were in midair. A single champagne flute tipped and clinked quietly against the floor, but no one took their eyes off the screen. My father, Richard, sprang up so rapidly that his chair tipped over behind him. His mouth opened, then closed, before opening again. Eventually, he spoke. "Who's that?" His tone was... My mom said nothing. She had not moved. Not 1 inch. Richard went forward, his gaze fixed on the photograph as if it were a ghost. "Marilyn, who is that man?" Nonetheless, she said nothing. So I answered calmly and clearly. His name was Eric. He was a substitute teacher at her school for a semester. They kept in touch. She told him I was his. And then she told you I was yours. My father's head turned toward me, as if hearing it hurt him physically. "How do you know all this?" I removed a folded letter from my jacket. He wrote this to her back in 2001. She kept it. It was in the attic. I found it last year when I was helping her move boxes. I handed it to him. He did not reach for it at first. Then cautiously, as if he did not trust his own limbs, he grasped it, opened it, and began reading. As he did, his look shifted from astonishment to pain, then to something else entirely. "You knew," he inquired, still looking at her. "You've known all this time, and you let me believe." His voice cracked. "You let me raise him, pay for everything, sit through this." He pointed to the party, the cake, and the attendees. "Richard, My mother finally attempted to speak, but her voice shattered like glass. "You lied to me for 32 years. His voice grew louder now. "And you let our son know. Your son grew up thinking he was the problem." I looked at Lucas. He appeared pale, as if he was finally performing the math in real time, and everything he had ever believed had twisted sideways. He stood up. "Wait, what is this, Noah?" "What are you saying?" I turned to face him. "I'm saying you spent your whole life lording over me like I was some burden, some stain on the family. But turns out I was never really part of it. Not the way you were, not to her. I was just a reminder of something she tried to bury." Lucas opened his mouth and then shut it. No comeback. This time, there's no punchline. Just silence. I took a step forward and peered out over the crowd. "You all toasted her for being this pillar of the community, this hero of education. But here's the truth. She built her image by erasing parts of her life she didn't want to acknowledge, starting with me." The room was really silent. Someone in the back, one of her teacher buddies, stood up and quietly exited. Then another. I clicked the remote again. This time, the screen turned black. No more slides, just me and the microphone. "I didn't come here to ruin a party," I explained softly. "I came here to end a lie." Then I placed the microphone on the podium, walked to my seat, and sat down. The tension did not break. It stretched thick, silent, and terrible. Richard was still clutching the letter and staring at the paper as if it were an X-ray of everything he didn't want to see. My mother still hadn't moved. She eventually spoke after what felt like a minute. "You had no right," she replied, her voice low and trembling. I turned to face her. "No right? You stood up in front of everyone and said you raised 2 amazing children and 1 regret. You made this public. I just gave them the context." She stared at me, then really looked, and for the first time in my life, I noticed something other than irritation or disappointment in her eyes. I saw terror, not of me, but of everything collapsing in real time. Her reputation, her marriage, and her meticulously maintained legacy. "This isn't fair," she said quietly, almost to herself, and it made me giggle. "Fair? You think any of this was fair?" But before I could continue, my father dropped the letter, looked at both of us, and said something I'll never forget. "Get out." At first I assumed he meant me, but he did not even look my way. He was staring straight at her. The room was so silent that I could hear the slow hum of the air conditioning vents above me, like background noise in a thriller film right before something happens. Richard's voice sliced through the air like a razor. "Get out." He repeated it again, this time louder. Not yelled, but sharp. Final. Marilyn's mouth opened as if she were going to argue, but then she noticed something in his eyes. Something chilly. Something warned her that she wouldn't win this fight. Not here. Not in front of these many people. "Richard," she began, taking a tentative step towards him. "No," he replied, backing away. "You lied to me for 3 decades. You let me believe he was my son." He gestured to me without looking, and I treated him like one, even when you didn't. A murmur spread among the guests. A few more people packed their belongings and began discreetly sneaking away, some out of discomfort, some possibly out of humiliation for clapping and laughing minutes before. She took a cautious turn, as if recalling the eyes on her, and forced a grin, the same tight, weird look she wore when a parent accused her of bias at school board meetings. "Everyone, I think this has all just been—" "Don't," I murmured, standing up. "Don't gaslight the room now. You don't get to spin this. You lied to Dad. You erased me from every family celebration in one way or another. And you were perfectly fine letting Lucas treat me like a stray dog you let in the house out of pity." Lucas flinched but did not interrupt. Richard looked at me for the first time since the slideshow. He wasn't furious at me, just broken and hollow. His face appeared older than it did an hour ago. "And you?" he asked me slowly. "When did you find out?" I took a breath. "Last year, just before Thanksgiving. I found the test and the letter in a storage box. She asked me to move. I confronted her in private. She told me it didn't matter. Said, 'You're still lucky we raised you,' like I was some stray she adopted out of charity." He shook his head slowly and almost in amazement. "And you didn't tell me?" I looked down and then back at him. I didn't know how. I thought about it 100 times. I wanted to scream it some nights, but every time I came close I'd just see how happy you were to still believe it. How much it would break you. His shoulders slumped. Then he gently whispered, "It still broke me." My throat clenched, but I did not look away. Across the room, Lucas straightened up taller, as if something had snapped in his mind. He pointed at me. "You planned this. You waited until her retirement party to drop this bomb. You wanted to humiliate her. You wanted to ruin everything." I gently turned towards him. "You mean kind of like how she called me her regret in front of 100 people? While you laughed. That kind of humiliation." His jaw stiffened. "You think I ruined the night?" I inquired. "Number I revealed the truth. You just don't like how it made you look." Lucas made a step forward. "You could have done this quietly, privately. But no, you wanted the show, the drama." I nodded. "You're right. I did want it public. Because every ugly thing you two have done to me has always come with a smile and a microphone. A backhanded comment at a birthday, a toast with a dig, a wedding speech where I was the punchline. For once, I wanted the truth to be the loudest voice in the room. He did not respond. His hands clenched, but he remained motionless. Behind us, the dessert table remained undisturbed. One of the balloons attached to the chair had somewhat deflated, drooping as if it no longer wanted to be a part of the party. Marilyn finally approached the exit, one hesitant step at a time, gripping her purse as a barrier. She said nothing to anyone, including Lucas, me, and Richard. Then she was gone. The door shut behind her with a quiet, echoing click. My father turned to the remaining visitors, who numbered only a few dozen and were quiet and uncertain. "Thank you all for coming," he stated frankly. "The party's over." They didn't argue. They merely started gathering their belongings and filtering out. Some gave me sympathetic looks. A few others glanced at me as if I were radioactive. I didn't care. Lucas walked out without saying anything, his wife trailing behind him, looking bewildered rather than outraged, perhaps wondering what secrets her marriage might be harboring. And then it was just Richard and me, with a few waiters in the distance clearing up spilled drinks and half-eaten fish dishes. He eventually sat down again, carefully rubbing his forehead as if everything was too much. I sat across from him. "You okay?" I inquired carefully. He did not look up. "I don't know." There was a prolonged pause. "I'm not your biological son," I explained gently. "But I never wanted that to matter to you. I wanted you to know me. See me the way you saw Lucas." His hand twitched. Then he looked me in the eyes and uttered the question I had always feared but strangely expected. "So, what do you want from me now, Noah?" I glanced at him across the table, the distance between us burdened down by 3 decades of silence, mistakes, and everything neither of us had ever uttered. My fingers touched the side of my water glass as I considered his query. "Noah, what do you want from me now?" It was not a simple question. A year ago I would have said I needed an apology, an admission that the way I'd been treated my entire life was not normal or fair, that I was left out of family photos, plans, and holidays was not a coincidence, that the way I was continuously compared to Lucas and found lacking wasn't just a mental construct. I would have wanted him to apologize for not noticing. But sitting there now, with the aftermath of my mother's retirement party still reverberating in the air and the slideshow halted on a black screen, something had changed. I did not want him to apologize to her anymore. I did not want him to explain to her. I didn't need him to defend me. So I simply said the first thing that came to me. "Nothing." His brow wrinkled. "Nothing." "I don't want anything," I stated simply yet firmly. "Not money, not sympathy, not a redo. I'm not here to be adopted retroactively. I needed the truth to come out. I needed you to see it. All of it." He gazed at me, searching for anything in my expression, perhaps anger or resentment. He probably expected a speech about how I desired a relationship or how we might reconcile. Instead, I sat quietly with my hands folded on the white linen tablecloth. "You could have told me in private," he repeated, echoing Lucas's earlier statement. "You had time." I nodded. "I could have. But then it would have been swept under the rug like everything else. She would have cried. Lucas would have called me ungrateful. And you would have defended her. You know it. I know it." He did not argue. I leaned forward slightly. Every time I stood up for myself, I was told I was being difficult. Every time I asked why I wasn't included or why I was treated like an outsider, someone made a joke or changed the subject. I was always too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. There was a long silence between us. "I'm not trying to punish you," I said softly now. I spent the majority of my life wondering what was wrong with me. And the reality is I was never broken. It was simply uncomfortable." Richard's eyes glistened. He looked down and tightened his fingers on the armrest of his chair. "I remember," he replied softly. "When you were 12, you wanted to go to that writing camp in Vermont. You begged for weeks. I remembered too. I created an essay for a partial scholarship, mailed it myself, and told my parents every day how much I wanted to go. She said no, Richard said, his voice distant. Said it was a waste of money. Said we couldn't justify it. I nodded. Then 2 months later, Lucas got that new mountain bike and a GoPro. He breathed shakily. I should have seen it. I did not respond. Some things did not require agreement. Eventually, he looked up. I don't know what will happen now. With your mother, with us. I met his gaze. I'm not asking for anything to happen. I just wanted the truth out there. Whatever happens next is on you. He nodded slowly, as if his neck were made of stone. You're not a regret, Noah. I offered him a timid smile. I know that now, whether she admits it or not. We sat silently for a while. The dinner hall was mostly empty now. Several servers were folding tables and stacking chairs. One of them accidentally knocked over his centerpiece vase, and the crash startled both of us, but we remained seated. Finally, Richard stood up. Are you staying in town for a while? A few more days. He paused. Would you maybe come by the house sometime? Not for her, just maybe we could talk. I pondered it. Maybe. But I'm not going to pretend everything's fine. I'm not going to sit around and play with my family like this didn't happen. He nodded solemnly. I wouldn't ask you to. I stood and adjusted my coat. All right then. He offered his hand. I glanced at it for a second, before shaking it. It seemed weird, stiff, and unpleasant, like two business people negotiating a contract. They didn't understand, but it meant something. Perhaps not everything, but something. Then I walked out. The next morning I awoke in a small guest room at the downtown inn. The sun was streaming in through the partially open curtains, and my phone had more notifications than I wanted to read. A few came from attendees at the party, with others claiming they had no idea they supported me. Others sent me ambiguous, "Are you okay?" texts, which I disregarded. Only one message stuck out. It came from Richard. Just a simple. I started packing some of her belongings. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but I wanted you to know I believe you. And I am sorry it took so long. I did not respond right away. I simply set down the phone, glanced out the window, and sighed. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm. Not vindicated, not triumphant. Just be still. Later that afternoon, I walked by the old park in our home, where I used to play as a child, generally alone, because Lucas didn't want me to join his friends. I sat on the bench near the rusting swing set and simply listened. Birds chirping, leaves rustling, and children laughing off in the distance. It gave me a sense of closure. Not a clean one, and not the kind wrapped in a bow, but authentic. The truth had been let free. Whether they liked it or not, they could no longer pretend. A few days later, I caught a trip back to Spain. As the jet soared above the clouds, I reflected on how bizarre families were, and how blood, last names, and childhood images did not always indicate closeness or affection. Sometimes they simply meant a shared past. And history, when left unchecked, had a habit of rotting in the attic like neglected boxes filled with lies. I never heard from my mother again, not directly. I learned from a cousin months later that she had moved in with her sister in Arizona. I told folks I am her and altered the story. She maintained her pride. She always would. Lucas just sent one short and personal email, something about wishing things had been different. I didn't respond, but Richard stayed in touch. Initially there were a few emails, then a phone call, then another. We did not rush into anything. There were no big reunions or emotional breakthroughs, but each discussion was a step, a choice. Over time, we discovered something that resembled what we had never had before. Not a father-son tie based on responsibility or tradition, but something softer, founded on honesty, mutual respect, and a strange type of understanding that neither of us could articulate. It was not ideal, but that was sufficient. Sometimes that's all you have.